Hey guys, it's Mr. Kennedy. I'm back with video 18, classification. And when we talk about classification, we first of all got to really talk about just a definition of classification. Now, classification is simply the grouping of objects or information into groups based on similarities. Now, when you think about classification in the school system, I usually think of the library. The library is where we have books all classified by the Dewey Decimal System, either by author, by subject, by content, etc. Now, if I was in charge of the library, it might be grouped a little bit differently. It might be grouped by books that have pictures, books that don't, how thick they are, how many pages. But we can even use classification in our classroom as well. Think about it like we can group our class into number of boys, number of girls, by hair color, height, age. So there's a lot of different things that classification can be used for. Now, in the scientific realm, by classifying organisms, it helps us figure out what they have in common, what similarities they have, and we can see the evolutionary lineage of the organism. Now, taxonomy is the branch of biology that's concerned with the grouping of the organism or with classification. Now, when we talk about classification system, we always have to start with a man named Aristotle. You probably have heard about him in English or history class. He was a Greek philosopher, and he invented a classification system that was simply either plant or animal. Now, he did break his plants down into herbs, shrubs, or trees, and he did break his animals down into land animals, water animals, and air animals. But there was a lot of problems here because you had some animals that kind of crossed barriers. For example, a frog. It spends part of its life in water, part of its life on land. So which one would you classify it in? A butterfly. Spends part of its life as a caterpillar and part of its life as a butterfly. So where it would be classified? A penguin would be another example. Even though there was a lot of problems with Aristotle's classification system, it lasted for about 2,000 years until a man named Carolus Linnaeus came along, and he was a Swedish botanist, which means he studied plants, and he made a classification system based on similarities, or physical similarities, or characteristics. And his term is called binomial nomenclature. Remember, bi means two, nomial means name, so it's a two-name classification system, and the two names are the genus and the species. So for us, human beings, our genus is Homo and our species is Sapiens. We are of the binomial nomenclature, or the scientific name, Homo sapien. Now, when we do scientific names, there's a few things you just need to know. Scientific names should always be underlined. The genus part of the scientific name, the first letter should be capitalized. Species is always lowercase, and you need to either underline the entire genus and species, or you need to write in italics. And since we're not really good at writing in italics, it's best to underline scientific names. Now, 450 is a great picture to look at, and it kind of shows you a diagram of how these different kingdoms go down in order and how they're related to each other. Now, when we talk about taxes and binomial nomenclature, taxes are categories in which organisms are grouped, one larger than the next. You need to know these in order. And they are kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, with kingdom being the broadest and species being the most specific. There's actually only 5 kingdoms, well 6 kingdoms depending on who you talk to, and species, they're unlimited in number of species, so there's more and more as you go down. Now, I learned back in 9th grade a mnemonic device that I still use today to keep them in order, and it's written over here on the right, and it's kings play chess on flat green stools, and it's the first letter of each word, so it keeps them in order. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Make sure you know these in order, and make sure you can recite them back to me on the test. Now, if you notice, here's another example of what it would be. There's actually a larger group called a domain, which we'll get into in a little while. It only came around probably the last 10 years or so. But if you look here at a kingdom, this kitty cat here, its kingdom is Animalia, means it's an animal. Its phylum is Chordata, which means it has a backbone. Its class is Mammalia, which means it is a mammal. Its order is Carnivora, which means it eats meat. It's carnivorous. Its family is Felidia, which means it's a feline. And then its genus is Felis catus. So that's its genus and its species names. You know, if they've written in italics, but we would have to underline it. But you can see how they kind of go down. Now, we are actually of the kingdom Animalia, the phylum Chordata, the class Mammalia. So we have some things in common with cats, but we're not from the same family. We're not from the same genus. We're not from the same species. So Animals can be from the same kingdom, but not necessarily from the same phylum on down. All right, now this is a great picture. I want to draw your attention first of all right here. You see these words, Felis catus, Memphis, Lutra, Lutra, Canis familiaris, and Canis lupus. They could give you these 5 words on the EOC and ask you to tell me which one is most closely related to the other one. Well, by just looking at the scientific name, I can tell you which 2 are most closely related. And of course, it would be these 2 here. These 2 are most closely related because they're from the same genus. You can see they both are from the genus Canis. So they're most closely related. Now, if I didn't have the common name up there, you could still tell. Now, if you look down here on the chart, you can see that all of these are from the same order, Carnivora. All of these are. But now, if you look next, they're broken up into 3 different families. The dog and the wolf are from the same family, and the skunk and the otter are from the same family. So out of these, the dog and the wolf are most closely related, but if you took these out of the equation, then the otter and skunk would be more closely related than the cat is to them, because they're from the same family. And then they're from different genuses and, of course, different species. Okay? All right, now, how are the relationships determined? There's really 5 ways. The first way is similarities between modern fossils, modern organisms and fossil organisms, so they look at fossil records. The second way is phylogeny, which is simply the evolutionary history of the organism. Can they trace it back? The third one is developmental stages of the animal, which would be like the infants, how did the embryos look in comparison to other animals. Biochemical analysis is probably the big one. DNA. You know, we actually compare our DNA. You know, I mean, we have a great deal of DNA in common with some animals, and that would make us closely related to them. And then behavior patterns. You know, do we care for our young? Do we let them out just to fend for themselves? Do we celebrate birthdays or deaths, etc.? So these are the 5 ways. The more of these you have in common, the more of the taxes that you're in with each other, and the smaller the taxes are. All right. Now the last thing here is the dichotomous key, and I just wanted to kind of go over one with you. We're going to go over one in class, but let's say we want to identify this leaf right here, leaf number 5. When you do a dichotomous key, di means 2, cotomous means choice. So dichotomous key is a 2-choice key. You always start with number 1 and work your way down. So even though this is leaf 5, we're going to start with number 1. It says, is it a compound or a simple leaf? Compound leaf is divided into leaflets. That would be like this one. Or a simple leaf is not divided into leaflets. So I would say it is this one. Well, notice what it says do. It says go to step 4. So we go down to step 4. Arrangement of leaf veins. Are the veins branch out from one central point? I think that's probably the answer. Let's read the other one. Veins branch out from a main vein in the middle of the leaf. So I think it's probably this one. So it says go to step 5. Overall shape of leaf. Leaf is shaped like a heart, or leaf is a star shape. I think it looks like a star. So this one right here, a sweet gum, is our leaf. Now if we want to go back, I'll clear my pen. We want to go back and let's say do this leaf, for example, leaf 6. We would start back with number 1. Is it compound or simple? It's simple. We would go to number 4, arrangement of the leaf veins. Or the veins branch out from a central point or from a main middle. This one actually from the middle, so it'd be number 6. Appearance of the leaf edge. Does it have tooth or teeth, or is it untoothed? It's untoothed, so this is actually a magnolia tree. All right, so you're going to have to do a dichotomous key on the test, so make sure you can do those. And I hope that helps you with classification, and we will talk again tomorrow. You guys have a good day.